to tell the story of his imprisonment by the Japanese during World War II.
I'm kind of proud of the fact that I'm a survivor. I wouldn't want to go back through it, but I wouldn't trade it either. It changed my life completely.
Listen to Ben Steele American on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We are in all of those places in order to make it the most easily accessible to you all, basically, in our continuing mission to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland, and wherever and however it works best for you all, we'll keep it going and keep doing it, of course, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And we have a lot to talk about today. I mean, I know, okay, let's just set up a few of the things starting. We have the start of the new month. We have the start of the school year for now most in the Borderland area. We, of course, have this week, as it does mark the third anniversary of the August 3rd Walmart shooting, that coming up as well. So a lot of events, commemorations, but then also threats already being made, as this might end up being a tense week for some here. So we'll break down what is going on with the schools, their new programs, the things being called into them as well, including some of those plans and preparations for August 3rd. And even then, some of the things going on in the community, plus more talk about what exactly is going on with some of those industrial real estate issues in the area, further bolstering my continued argument that whatever the national economy may be, there's a lot of people betting on the Borderland region. But even beyond that, also more things on flood control and just a whole lot more there. So stay tuned for all the things we got coming up for you here on the program, even as there is some national legislation continuing to move through and a whole lot more. So another busy show for you today. So if you're chiming in over on the social media, you're more than welcome to, as we already have a Flaco Menace dropping that like and react. We do appreciate that, as well as a better place you can comment throughout the program over there on the social media. And we'll have those phone lines open a little bit later in the program, as we usually do. So let's jump right into it. I hope y'all aren't out on the roads right now. I got into the studio a little bit later than planned here today and definitely ran into those renewed school zones. Not that they were, I didn't think they existed anymore, but definitely a bit of an issue, particularly in at least some of them where people were treating lanes of traffic like drop-off zones. Yeah, I don't even remember that particularly happening in this way in previous years, but also good reminder to me to get my rear in gear and get into the studio here than usual, working from home a lot today. I know it is what it is, even though we got to be in the studio to be here with you all on the radio as we do. So I was mildly surprised. I'll admit I kind of forgot a little bit. I'm sure for those that have youngsters in their lives was very difficult one to forget, as the start of this month has meant the start of return to school, but also a lot of the programs coming in there, including a lot more focus and, well, very important, including for our news partners over there at KFOX 14, talking about some more of the school safety things. Very much been a focus in the lead up to us, and some of that unfortunately having to be put into action here today, as a number of threats, not even just confined to schools, but we'll start with schools here today, being made, called in on social media, etc. Not a whole lot of specificity on exactly what or how things were being said, but some of the schools, according again to our news partners over there at KFOX 14, that were being threatened, including Montwood High School, Eastlake High School, Ben Narberth Elementary School, and Slider Middle School. Now, the upside of this is, as much as there can be one anyway, is that the El Paso Police Department said that they were aware of the threats and working with school officials, but that they were not thought to be viable or realistic threats here. Because unfortunately, as the situation continues to evolve in this modern day and age, it is significantly easier to, well, essentially make even a hoax threat than it is to do, well, have to follow up on it. I mean, just the level of action that it takes here, all you need is like a burner social media account these days, and you could technically make a threat, versus what has to be done on the part of officials is to then track it down, research it, find out the viability, maybe take further appropriate action. I mean, it could very much end up in lockdowns and such, and I think that's, at least in some cases, what people are hoping to trigger here, just a waste of resources. And as much as that is just totally scumbag moments here, and not something I'm particularly understanding, like I just don't get that mindset at all. But what has to be done by officials is obviously the key component here. So the fact that they were able to rule some of these out here is actually probably a good thing in my mind, because among other things, the ability to essentially make it that whole balance of activity ends up being less skewed on having to waste more resources when it comes to officials and school districts, etc. The other part of this is probably needed, and I'm hoping that something we'll be seeing coming out of that is going to be on the enforcement side, because as much as we're talking about the imbalance of effort here, the risk versus reward, the risk part has to be just almost catastrophic for anyone involved in this. The idea of there being like, well, you made a threat, just don't do it again, slap on the wrist time. Not that that has existed, but definitely needs to be even further put forth is, yeah, if you're making a hoax threat, I want to say in most places these days it is, or at the very least should be, a felony, because seriously, saying that, oh yeah, I can just completely disrupt the school day just for S's and giggles, then there be no repercussions? Nah, that can't be allowed to stand. So yeah, serious, it's taken seriously, and I hope we see some follow-up on these cases, even if there were, again, a little bit more and even beyond what there was going on there, at least some attorneys I know in the area. And again, of course, from our news partners, if you want to find the article for yourself over from our news partners at KFox14, that there was a low-level threat reported at the El Paso County Courthouse, and that there was having to be some response on it there. El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego posted this statement saying, as we commemorate the August 3rd anniversary this week, unfortunately, we have received a threat to the courthouse. In a bunch of caution, I'm advising employees to work offsite through the week if possible, unless your supervisor specifies otherwise. The sheriff's office and police departments are heightening security checkpoints, increasing plainclothes officers and uniform protection, and bringing in bomb-sniffing canines as a precaution. So even if I'm kind of glad of the way the response worked out here at schools, there's still a lot more looking at in this community as we get closer to it here. Robbie Flores saying, yeah, please look out for the kiddos. Absolutely. And Flaco Jimenez agreeing with that here. John Brazelton on some of that national legislation being brought up here, that the Biden-Schumer Manchin inflation reduction legislation will raise taxes anyone making less than $200K per year. Let's hope that the Arizona U.S. Senator, I believe you're referring to Kirsten Sinema there, hangs tough. Most of the big pieces of legislation that have been moving to the Senate that have a little bit of, shall we say, controversy attached to them here, look to have a difficult time as we get closer to the Senate, but also as we get closer to the November elections. You can bet that, the rhetoric is going to be ramped up. Tell you what, coming up next segment, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Some of what we've, well, even just on our airways, what you can see here, plus what some of the numbers coming in. I mean, Louis Bernard saying, oh, let's make laws against hoax threats. I mean, there already are, because seriously, even just a nice, huge, fat bill. I mean, we do it for people who are in their own, non-hoax emergency situations, to think that that wouldn't come down to the person who is then generating a multi-thousand, if not $1,000,000 response here. I don't really have a good gauge on the numbers, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that if someone does something serious enough, that even as a hoax, the amount of response it would make. So I'm just going to say, already in place, and I'm finding myself very much in favor of them, because let's just say freedom of speech, of course, very important to me, not even just personally, but professionally as well. But the idea, again, there is no right that does not come without limits. You can't swing your arms around freely through someone's nose. So the idea that just making a threat would not then come with consequences, A, kind of ridiculous on its face value, and B, not tenable for the way the world exists these days here. So we got to take that break right now. Coming out of the break, Talk a little bit more about that. What is going on in the community as we get closer to that August 3rd anniversary. Plus, of course, what's going on with some of the development in the area that we are very much focused on. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this first break of the hour already here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Southbound of the Memorial Highway after Montwood, there is a vehicle that's blocking the left lane. Police are on the scene. Expect delays. There's a backup to Montwood right now. Dyer southbound at Loop 375, an accident reported. Another crash reported Copia Street at Richmond. And road construction's got the right lane closed on the 10 westbound from Schuster to Executive Center Boulevard for road work. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
Country music star John Rich just released a new single called Progress, where he calls out woke ideology. Don't miss John Rich and don't miss The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday, every Thursday, and all throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Texas, this is Eric Burton.
And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean.
So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads.
It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free.
Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like, rewire the hull?
They're firing, Paul.
Wait, what did I do? Or even,
install a waterfall. Whose dumb idea was this?
Be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, how about that drywall?
Hand me that nail gun. Here you go. And here's the fries. Lunch. Who's hungry? You know, maybe instead of loading up a nail gun with French fries to feed the crew, we should just order lunch through Easy Cater. Food from all our favorite restaurants. My bad. On time and as ordered. Delicious. Huh. Load up the hot dogs while I think about it.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Food for work on time and as ordered from over 85,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today always ends up seemingly to be a pretty busy time. Start of the week, start of a month, start of the school year, start of the August 3rd week of remembrance we got going on here. So, yeah, even just those starts is enough to fill a show here. But we got a lot more we're getting at, as well as we got a lot to break down for you. A lot of people chiming in over on the social media, including Louis Pinato, Flaco Jimenez, John Browson, and Robbie Flores, as well as Calvoins, Monica Cervantes, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez, leaving those reacts over on the primarily Facebook, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It was more or less the main page. It's definitely our longest running one, and where the Skeptic Squad seems to come out more often than not these days, and the Thunderdome Comments comes on. So if you want to wade in there, forewarned, forearmed, and a lot of other interesting points being made here. Again, going off what Louis Panado was saying against hoax threats and the laws against them, I mean, have already existed, but also, again, mentioned some of the policies, again, a lot of focus being done by many organizations, including our news partners over there at KFOX 14, on what policies are in place and new programs, etc., at the start of the school year to focus on that, as there was quite the exclamation point put on it, to say the very least, towards the end of the last school year and the aftermath of the Uvalde Robb elementary shootings. Definitely making this very forefront in a lot of parents, teachers, administrators, the general public's mind. And so some of the things being done here is including in a lot of the area districts, in any case, some zero tolerance policies, but also a not just, I think it's an interesting point to be made that there is a zero tolerance policy for threats, violence, etc. And I don't feel like that has particularly changed since my day. I mean, I know that there was at least one story when I was back in elementary school. Not quite sure how apocryphal it should be treated or not. There was a rumor about a kid having brought almost, I'm not going to say exactly innocently, but cluelessly having brought in some like a 22 ammunition into school for a show and tell kind of thing. And I'm not sure if that was the story or not, but I definitely believed it at the time because we definitely never saw that kid again. But in any case, what they're actually doing these days is that they're saying that, there is code of conduct and violations, offenses, and can lead to, of course, things like expulsion or even prosecution, but that they're much as they're focused on, keeping the rest of the students safe, not just necessarily burying or sweeping under the rug the rest of them either, saying that, just quoting directly from the article, students who break conduct can be sent to alternative schools known as DAEPs, but they aren't simply sent away. They receive counseling and are required to keep up with their academics. So the idea of actually dealing with the student population and not just kind of excising what may be seen as problem areas of it. I mean, in that case, you're not actually dealing with the problem. You're just removing it from your sphere and not making it so something you have to deal with here. So in doing that, I find myself in favor of it, though, of course, the devil is always in the details and making sure that these things are actually followed up with, kept in place, kept in good order. And as much as we've talked about, there are also being issues with too-top-heavy administration. Would like to not see it go that kind of a way, particularly when we're talking about school districts. But as much as we're talking about that, also, again, some of the other threats going on in the community, as much as unfortunately it does come this week of August 3rd, in which there are many, remembrances, new ceremonies, things going on, even some new artwork being unveiled as part of this week. I mean, very important for particularly those directly affected by it, but also as a general community, I do feel like I have maybe seen around more lately, or there, at least maybe I'm just noticing them, more of the El Paso Strong, the iconic, that one format of the star that I'm not quite sure who the artist was on it there, but not just as the, regular 5-point star, but the points of light that make up the way the star on the mountain is. I feel like I have been seeing that around more lately, or maybe I'm just, again, noticing it more. But important, and a lot of these events coming up, hoping that they can go off well as they can be in these commemorations and remembrances, because it's important for a community to remember these kind of things, even as we've talked about recently, no immediate updates happening right now, but a little bit more languishing. Though I will say one point that has been made is that there have been more talk now about out-of-town attorneys being hired, some more filings being made in the continuation of the August 3rd indicted shooter trial. So that is still progressing at this point, but no action being expected even this year at this point. I do recall, as we were initially discussing this back on this program in 2019, in the immediate aftermath, I was very much expecting not even within the calendar year, when then, of course, within that year, we had things such as the pandemic, the restrictions and upheavals that came with that. So I can't say I'm surprised that this process has continued to drag on even a little bit further, but putting it out into 2023 and even 2024 at this point still feels a little, I don't know. I know there's many phrases that come to mind here, such as justice delayed is justice denied, and also the whole concept of a quick and speedy trial. But I don't know how many of those things actually apply in this case, because ultimately the thing that I am most interested in and focused on, and that very much guides the way that we both talk about what happened that day and as well as the continuing victims, is making sure that this trial can go off without a hitch. Because seriously, the ability of this to go through, and Louis Panado chiming in saying more anti-gun theater, I feel like my positions when it comes to guns right is pretty well known here, but calling this trial just that is honestly a little bit sick. I'm going to say that pretty freely, because thinking that this is just going to be something that, I mean, sure, there's going to be politics put in and made out of this, but also just saying that that's the only thing that is important for this. I mean, seriously, not even just the people directly affected, but this entire community, which is why, among other things, the way we talk about this incident and what happened to it and the trial that goes through it, that's pretty much what it's all focused on. That trial, making sure it goes off without a hitch, because whatever your expectations about the outcome or things that might come from it are, the one that I am pretty laser focused on and will continue to be as we see the progression up until the actual trial, which, fingers crossed, knock on wood kind of moment, will still be held in this community. There has been no immediate indication of there being a seeking of a change of venue, but again, with a couple of years potentially now in the difference between, again, we have the federal and the state trials pending on this, and of course the local prosecution and the local district attorney Yvonne Rosales focused on that one here, making sure it goes off without a hitch and that there are no technical issues, none of those kind of things that can come up in appeal that would invalidate any set of rulings or outcomes of it. Seriously, that would be, among all the possibilities that I can imagine in this case, one of the worst potential outcomes, not even just for the process of justice, for the immediate victims and the survivors and their families from, again, the indicted shooter, but for the community as a large. I mean, that's the kind of thing that scars not even just, again, those that they're the physical punishment that comes from such a thing, but the soul of the community, I dare say. Because that happening and that being allowed to happen that way and get off that kind of way, words almost fail me, except for the words that I want to use are the ones I can't use on the radio here, for what that would mean and what that would affect this community by. So that is so much to say that the way we continue and will be talking about this, we'll have a little bit more talk about some of the remembrances, some of the events as we get particularly closer to, of course, Wednesday this week. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the political implications cannot be ignored, but to boil it down to that, particularly as it has affected this community, just does not sit right with me. But even then, the politics are, of course, inseparable from this season because, well, we're getting closer to November, on which every elected representative from the House of Representatives, the Congress of the United States, will, of course, be up for grabs, or at the very least going back into it, even if there are a few more toss-ups with retirements and such than there may have been in previous years. And, of course, coming the first year after redistricting has happened and those congressional maps redrawn, maybe a little bit more up for grabs than they usually would have been. But then also the focus on the Senate comes a little bit later. At the very least, Maria Kalman making at least one point being made here that Veronica Escobar today tweeted out her support of a bill that would make all U.S. benefits available to those illegally entering. The legislation, if passed, would not require a green card for recipients. Between increased property taxes and more IRS initiatives, who represents us, nothing is free and monies will be collected at some point. I mean, no such thing as a free lunch is foundational for me in any case, at the very way I consider the way taxation and the spending of money comes in. But what I will say is this, some of the other things, because, okay, I get all the texts, I get all the emails, at the very least, I think I do, because I signed up for some and I get more than I didn't expect. At least one thing coming to me from over the weekend from the Escobar campaign saying that there is an expectation that a Republican raise their TV spends in El Paso to $1.1 million. Then, of course, a fundraising line that comes along with this, because if you're getting a political message these days that doesn't come with fundraising, I kind of want you to send it to me, because I will be vaguely surprised that that is happening, because seriously, there just aren't. They all come with fundraising messages. I mean, maybe not like their official office statements, but often the ones that come from their official office statements are then turned into, by their campaign, into a fundraising push. I mean, it's the lifeblood of modern national stage, shall we say, because this isn't necessarily a national office, but national stage level stuff, very much focused on it here. And as Kathy Coterie is also focused on some of those grocery prices, keeping our watchdog on that, raising all their prices just in time for Halloween. Yes, very much so. I mean, those prices are going to continue to go up. That's no surprise to me here, though. Putting in those ways, those microcosms is a little bit, I guess, hurts more than usual, I guess you could say. Michael Petta is asking on the prosecution of the August 3rd indicted shooter. Hasn't the DA already bungled a murder trial? There definitely has been some discussion in recent days and weeks, more last couple of months, I do recall, of some consternation that has come forth from other trials. But the one I guess I'm thinking most particularly of is from the judge in the August 3rd shooting case at the state level anyway. Not, I mean, there's a reason that we won't be able to ask the DA or anyone in the office directly about this case until the trial moves forward, is that a gag order has actually been placed in that, and some very choice words that were said from the court dais by the judge in that case, essentially saying, not to put words in anyone's mouth, but that they were unhappy. I think that's a pretty fair way to put it, with the way that the progress has been made, as the point was made there that few, if any, motions had been filed at that point, and to call for it being sped up was concerning and confusing to the judge in that case, because they didn't understand how they can ask for that when they have not been moving forward with it. There was at least one other murder trial that there has been some further issues with, as has been reported on by our news partners. So that's why, among other things, I remain very focused on making sure, as much as I can from this unelected, non-judicially involved position that I find myself in, making sure that at the very least we keep you all informed, but as, again, whatever influence this kind of position can have on making sure that this trial can go off without a hitch. Accountability for the most part, but also making sure this influences the way we talk about it, such as saying that it is indeed the indicted shooter in this case, even if there are many, many, many other kinds of words I might like to use in this case. Some of those comments also coming in there, you can see them for yourself. I mean, y'all are free to, of course, harbor your own opinions and say what you want to say on these issues, but that's the way we talk about it on this program. We will be keeping it very specific for that purpose here. So that's going to take us through that next break right now. Coming out of this break, a little bit more on some of what is going on, including the expectation of industrial real estate breaking more records. We'll talk about that, as well as some of those flood control issues in our areas as well. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Again, you are tuned in to News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. So stay tuned for more. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Several school threats were reported at different schools in the El Paso region on the first day of school today. Threats were reported at Montwood High School, Eastlake High School, and Narberth Elementary and Slider Middle School. Officials with the El Paso Police Department said they did not believe that the threats were credible, and instruction continued without interruption. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser has purchased 5,000 tickets for UTEP's first home football game. Those tickets are for city employees. Employees with the police department, fire department, and the sheriff's office are also eligible for the tickets. UTEP will face the University of North Texas on August 27th. Leeser says he supports the UTEP's 915 campaign meant to improve attendance at UTEP's home football games. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On your El Paso freeways, on the loop in the East Valley, Memorial Highway southbound right after Montwood. A vehicle is blocking the left lane and a backup to Montwood. Expect delays there. Police responding to a crash at Dyer, southbound at the loop. I-10 westbound at Airway. There's a stalled truck blocking the right shoulder. And a crash at Copia and Richmond Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. It's been unseasonably hot as temperatures continue to rise about 5 degrees above average, which basically means more triple digits. And the heat is not done with us yet. In fact, we'll continue to see temperatures hover near 100 for the next few days, but we are expecting a little more moisture back in the area, and that will translate to better rain chances this week. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your very latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Fall into autumn hiring with Indeed. Their all-in-one solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
The big guy is in trouble. Coming up on the Ben Ferguson podcast, we now know that the investigation into Hunter Biden is including a conspiracy probe, meaning that Joe Biden could be in huge legal trouble. I'll give you the details. Download the Ben Ferguson podcast now.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson podcast.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. A lot of comments coming in here and being made over on our social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk is where you can find us, but also whole lot of issues being discussed in the area. Well, those phone lines open at the end of this segment, as we usually do. And I know some conversations, immigration issues, they're never too far from front of mind from the many things we cover here, as well as a lot of different comments. You really got to see them for yourselves. YouTube and Facebook are probably the most active one these days. So that's YouTube, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, and of course, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Flaco Jimenez thanking one of our other commenters, Robbie Flores, for being a voice of reason in the quackening, as well as some more focus on illegal immigration and the issues that come with it, and some of the ideas and not being let work illegally. I know there's some reporting going on over there, but more specifically, I know that there has been some push for there to be, it's happened in different states at different points in time, but I think it's a little bit more from the national angle now on the idea of issuing things or being able to issue things such as IDs or even driver's licenses. I mean, we know that there's the temporary authorizations that have essentially been given to those being bused or flown around the country, so keep an eye on that one, but focus a little bit more locally here for the moment as we start the week. We had a little bit of discussion in this past week of what was going on with industrial, warehousing and, construction ability space, and some more reporting going on that locally, including from El Paso Inc., saying that industrial real estate breaks more records. And just the first line here, the market for El Paso's warehouse and industrial space is on par with this month's weather. Hot. And again, some of the numbers that we were talking about, including from CBRE, them referencing some of those same numbers and looking at how exactly much is currently going up or being used up in our area. Again, that figure of about 6 million square feet being pursued and built in this area and a whole lot more, including some of the focus and a bit more of the interesting reporting from El Paso Inc. on this point, is that continued development in the Santa Teresa area. It has long been a possibility and an interest of mine personally on what could be happening with that development space out there, because of course you got, the industrial mecca and the logistics mecca that is already out there, with of course the overweight cargo zone that comes from the Santa Teresa port of entry that allows in that warehouse space, and why they've got some extra thick concrete out there is to allow for that movement, and therefore just more easeability of transport. If you can put on 2 trucks what might take 3 previously, there's an advantage there, pretty obviously to be seen. Then, of course, the Santa Teresa International Air Jetport, I think technically is the name for it, that y'all may have been out there previously or have visited there for things like the War Eagles Air Museum or some of the other events. I was out there not too long ago for at least one of the flights they did of the Warbirds, even if those have been happening in other areas as well. But also that space, the idea there is a plan that has been on the books for at least half a decade that I've been aware of it anyway, on the idea of having a crosswind 10,000 plus foot runway installed out there, which would take, again, quite a bit of land. But the idea of it being able to take even the largest super heavies out there, any plane in the sky would be able to land at that. That's in the works. And what's already, of course, in place out there, that intermodal that allows for, if you're ever wondering where all those railroad tracks right next to I-10 and downtown El Paso went, of course, there's still a couple of lines, but there's not the dozens parallel that there used to be. Well, they essentially moved that capacity at the Santa Teresa and have the huge yard and a whole lot more open space out there. So, point being is that area is increasingly being focused on. And the article, again, from El Paso Inc. Quotes Jerry Pacheco, president of the Borderland Industrial Association, is the goal to eventually land cargo jets out there. It is definitely going to continue being a focus. So what I'm saying is that I still stand very much by the argument I was kind of laying out last week, that even if there are some, a lot of economic indicators pointing to the idea of a recession being very much already in place or very possible, how the exact impact that happens on El Paso, the tea leaves are a little bit vague on that point, because sure, as much as, industrial supply, other things that are not produced in this area definitely affect us and our ability to get them. The industrial base and interest in this area, again, the whole nearshoring, if not exactly reshoring phenomenon that's been happening, plus the concept of shortening supply lines, wanting to take more advantage of the, central and even northern Mexico supply routes to shorten them a little bit, because it's easier to put things on a train than it is a train, cargo ship, train, back onto a truck, those kind of things. Just shortening it, making it a little bit more, RJ also talking about international cartel tunnels. That's a little bit more unsubstantiated in my mind. But of course, smuggling is an issue, which is why, among other things, also that idea of them putting a better accessibility out towards Santa Teresa, because right now the only one real major route to get out there is off Artcraft, and then technically, is that the Pete Domenici Highway, or am I thinking of a different one? But the way around there, that kind of inverted J kind of looking roadway that you have to get onto. It's not bad, but also it's there's not exactly a lot of other routes out that way. So there's the possibility of the Mexico side of things, them adding more connections through directly Santa Teresa, the actual settled part of Santa Teresa where the residents are, as well as Sunland Park, to do more of a parallel to the border area. And why I guess I'm not too worried about the smuggling aspects of this here is because also right out that way, a little bit further out, Highway 9, as you head towards they again paralleling the Mexican border and U.S. border right there. You got one of the bigger Border Patrol substations in the area, very well equipped and very much paying attention to what's going on out there. So as much as I continue to give a whole lot of credit to those men and women in the green and the uniforms who do that both in the ports of entry with CBP or in between them with Border Patrol, not as much worried about that. And yeah, it's not exactly easy terrain to try to build anything through in those areas. So sure, there's a level of concern that I share with that, as much as I do in any kind of circumstance, but that's not even where the major enforcement has been needing to happen lately, because it's not where the current barriers are built. It's the gaps in between them, primarily around the Anapra area and the base of Mount Cristo Rey, where those issues have really been very present. So a little bit more enforcement there And the Codria notes in the Border Patrol station between Las Cruces and Hatch is closed. There have been some staffing issues with those as well. Talking more about the checkpoint there, I think is what you're referring to, if I'm not mistaken. So what you hit when you head on, I-25 headed north again towards Hatch, run into that one. Yeah, it hasn't been active most of the recent times I've been through there. Has been occasionally, but it's always been a little bit hit or miss. You head north, east, or west from here, you're going to run into one. Whether it's active or not is a separate issue. But another reason there needs to be more focus, more availability, more staffing, and technology available for these things, which is why, well, it just tends to ever so happen if there is more economic activity, there tends to be more resources put into an area. So I see this as even being beneficial in this continued industrial development with those issues here. So that's going to bring us through the next break in the hour here right now. And we'll go ahead and do what we usually do at this point during the show and open up those phone lines. Again, we've been talking about a lot of stuff here at the start of the month and the first hour of this program. So if you want to chime in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Got to take that next break right now, but if you want to get on the line, now's the time to do so. Plus, if you want to leave your comments, whole lot more of those coming in. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso freeways, on the loop in the East Valley, Memorial Highway southbound right after Montwood. A vehicle is blocking the left lane and a backup to Montwood. Expect delays there. Police responding to a crash at Dyer. Southbound at the loop, I-10 westbound at Airway. There's a stalled truck blocking the right shoulder. And a crash at Copia and Richmond Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Brake Masters.
Navigating through traffic is like walking between raindrops. It's a jungle out there, so don't forget to get your vehicle in BrakeMaster shape. Just download coupons and schedule an appointment with your smartphone.
Brake Masters. We give you an honest break.
Scott Curley, CEO and founder of KickIRS.com.
If you're getting letters from the IRS, call us immediately. The IRS is the only entity in the country that can seize assets without a court order. If you call us in time, then we know where they're at and we can intervene before anything damaging occurs.
So I called KickIRS.com and they were able to help me. I no longer have this huge tax debt. I am able to sleep better at night and I no longer stress about this. So thank you, KickIRS.com. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Call for your free tax relief consultation now at 800-420-7550. That's 800-420-7550.
If you don't deal with your IRS problem, then they're going to take your paycheck, they're going to drain your bank account, and they may even take your house. But that doesn't have to happen.
Get your free case evaluation now at 800-420-7550. 800-420-7550. That's 800-420-7550.
Some big news. Dick Morris's new book came out, and it says Donald Trump is running for president. And right after that, President Trump said, it's not a matter of if, but when. You need to get Dick Morris's new bestseller, The Return, today. It reveals Trump's long-expected plan for 2024, his real reason for running, and his coming big surprise. Morris says Trump still might face 3 threats, including Hillary Clinton. And yes, Morris says she's running again. Newsmax says The Return is the book of the year. Already a #1 Amazon bestseller, The Return gives you Trump's plan. Big media, big tech, and the deep state want to stop Trump, but The Return shows Trump will triumph. Get Dick Morris's The Return in bookstores everywhere, or see the free offer from Newsmax and save almost $28. Just go to thereturn911.com. Thereturn911.com. That's thereturn911.com.
Country music star John Rich just released a new single called Progress, where he calls out woke ideology. Don't miss John Rich and don't miss The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday, every Thursday, and all throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets we're on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over on those, including RJ, Kathy Kodry over on the YouTube, Robbie Flores, Maria Kalman, Flaco Jimenez, and more. I want to say I skipped a few people. Michael Perez, Louis Pinato, John Brazelton, and more over on the Facebook side of our social media. But really, anywhere you got us here, able to chime in or just tune in, you are more than welcome to, as we continue our mission to have, well, live local talk radio here in the Borderland, among other things. So a lot of ground we've covered so far today, but we'll get even further into it as we do have that phone line open now, as we usually do during the show. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. I mean, just a lot of the things starting, including the start of the month, start of the week, start of the new school year, start of the week for the August 3rd commemorations and remembrances. Yeah, a lot of starts. So we'll start getting to those phone calls right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Frankie in Mesilla with us on the line here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right, this is Frankie. Happy Monday to everybody.
You as well.
Right out of the box, I wanted to comment. You know, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, is planning to go a tour around Asia. And she's going to stop at Taiwan. And, of course, President Xi of China is all bent out of shape about that, and he's going to start some military action if she does, in fact, visit. So my question is everybody okay with that? Number one, from my perspective here, she's got a right, or we, the United States, have a right to go visit any one of our friendly nations, wherever they are. On the other side, you know, you're going to say, well, she could instigate or cause some international conflict militarily. So I just want to know what everybody's thought process is on that. That's my whole comment for the hour for the day here.
I mean, it's a simple question that is quite the can of worms whenever it comes to the realities of it, because, well, let's just say, just from the Chinese perspective here, they very much treat and consider Taiwan as their own sovereign territory, even if reality doesn't really back that up, and treat anyone coming to it or treating it differently. I mean, as much as we've talked about, you know, I think like the Confucius Institutes or support of different entities in this country, often coming from quote unquote nonprofit dollars or support therein from China. If they say anything about Taiwan and not referring to it as essentially, I mean, I sometimes refer to mainland China as a West Taiwan in contravention of their policy. Yes, they are very much going to use this to stir it up. So yes, there could be some outcomes of that coming from that potential visit by the Speaker of the House. But the one thing I would say is that I'm not going to say, I mean, I'm sure there are some out there that would say this is being caused by Pelosi, but this very, very, very much the entire response and the tone and tenor they decided to take with it very much in the court of the Chinese Communist Party. If they're going to decide that they're going to hold major exercises or mock invasions or whatnot, that's their decision. So saying that this is Pelosi's fault, as much as I falter with many, many other things, doesn't really bear out here, because if anything, this is their saber rattling, then reaching a, well, frequency that is then causing them to have this issue. I mean, seriously, this is their problem, their fault, and any action they have, the blame for it will fall squarely on their heads, no matter how they try to spin it. Whether it's a good idea, knowing that they are that wound tightly on it, is another question entirely for the Speaker of the House. But as well, at the same time, we've been selling arms and weapons to the Taiwanese for decades now. So, I mean, yeah, it could open up one hell of a can of worms, but I'm not going to place any blame for it on anything besides, well, China and its government.
Well, okay, you know, as long as they confine themselves to just saber rattling, I'm okay with that, you know, because I just don't want to see my beer go up, you know, because I have priorities, you know. So I just wanted to say that. Also, one last point, I'm super happy some nut job, one of these insurrectionist nut jobs, got a sentence of 7 years. Yippee-yi-yay. Just working our way down until finally that big guy with the orange-colored skin is going to find himself in front of a court also. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
All right, you have a good one there. I mean, okay, yes, there was at least one of them, gentleman from Texas, I do believe it was, being put up to that. I do think we have the story over on our website if you want to go find it at KTSMradio.com. If I'm not mistaken or misremembering a different defendant we're talking about here. But in any case, to say that it would then move further forward in the direction you're talking about, I remain dubious about, as I quite often have. One of the points being made is that actually this is being pointed out as, it was a Texan man being said, quote, lit the match of January 6th riots. Again, more than 7 years in prison is what he's come down with. One of the longest given out to any of those arrested and being held on the January 6th riot issues. Whether or not that leads straight to the former president is a point that I have had a lot of, I just don't buy it, simply put, because to say that there is a direct connection there, I mean, that is as much as what was being tried to be proved during the hearings that have been ongoing, of course, and kind of reached their crescendo for now anyway. And I have to believe that if they really had what would be widely considered a smoking gun, direct evidence, etc., that it would have been presented already. Because the thing about investigations and why I've both been calling for it and have not been surprised that it hasn't really been happening yet is because they're not sexy. They don't play well in front of there because most of the officials involved in them tend to say, we do not comment on ongoing investigations, because commenting on what you're finding out as you're finding out about it and like trying to build a case are not really complementary ideas. They don't work well together. So if you really want to get to the bottom of it, fact finding, it doesn't immediately lend itself to news conferences or hearings, which is why I felt more than a little bit cart before the horse kind of thing we've been dealing with. And sure, those that had particular actions during the riots at the Capitol building, well, though we've had a lot of conversation about those, but to say that again, the direct link happens there, that, well, more than a little bit dubious anyway. Anyway, we got to take that next break right now, due for the top of the hour here. So we're already getting just going about halfway through the show now. And during the second half, we'll continue having those calls, comments, and all that stuff we do on the line. A lot more commentary coming in, people chiming in. And if you want to get on the line to do that yourself, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso traffic, I-10 westbound at Airway, a truck is blocking the right shoulder. Dyer southbound at the Loop. An accident reported there. Edgemere at Lee, an earlier accident, still has police on the scene slowing traffic at that intersection. Montana Avenue west of Copia, there's a crash there. And Memorial Highway slowing southbound after Montwood due to a stalled vehicle. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Eee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden will talk tonight from the White House about a successful counterterrorism operation against a significant al-Qaeda target. Reports say a U.S. drone strike in Afghanistan killed Ayman al-Zawahiri. There was a $25 million bounty on his head. Biden's expected to speak at 7:30 Eastern. The Senate Majority Leader is ripping Republicans for blocking a bill giving aid to veterans exposed to toxic burn pits overseas.
We're going to give Senate Republicans another chance to do the right thing, to work with us so we can send this bill to the president's desk ASAP.
New York Democrat Chuck Schumer called it tragic and infuriating during remarks on the Senate floor. He vowed to continue pushing the legislation. Republicans blocked the veterans bill as a protest of Democrats' big new economic package dubbed the Inflation Reduction Act. The death toll from flooding in Kentucky is now 35. Governor Andy Beshear tweeted the update as he described it as more tough news. He also posted a video saying eastern Kentucky is in for more bad weather, more rains expected, and isolated flash flooding could occur. A San Diego judge is dismissing a lawsuit over the Chargers' move to Los Angeles. Eddie McCoven reports.
The lawsuit was filed on behalf of San Diego resident Ruth Henricks, who claimed Chargers owner Dean Spanos knowingly made false statements about keeping the team in San Diego. The lawsuit also cited former NFL official Jim Steig, who told the San Diego Union-Tribune in 2021 that Spanos had planned to move the team to Los Angeles all along. The judge said Steig's remarks to the paper were his opinion and could be considered hearsay, and that the alleged claims of fraud were beyond the statute of limitations. I'm Eddie McCoven.
A judge is limiting the amount of information that can be obtained by Harvey Weinstein's lawyers for his upcoming sexual assault trial. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Mayor Eric Adams is declaring a local state of emergency as monkeypox cases keep climbing in New York City. Natalie Migliori has more.
Mayor Adams says the latest executive order will bolster existing efforts to educate, test, and treat as many New Yorkers as possible during the monkeypox outbreak. The mayor is fielding criticism regarding the city's response. We got the appointments, we got the vaccines out the door. No, we did our thing and we're doing our thing while we're still dealing with COVID. New York City has more than 1,200 monkeypox cases, which make up roughly 25% of cases across the country. I'm Natalie Migliori.
A Southeast Texas energy giant will let a Russian company take over its oil field services in the country. Baker Hughes announced the deal today, saying the unnamed business will work independently from them. Houston-based Baker Hughes said earlier this year it would end Russian oil investments after Ukraine was invaded. The Los Angeles Police Department has extra officers patrolling the 6th Street Bridge. Phil Hewlett reports it comes after weeks of nighttime closures caused by illegal activity.
On Sunday, the LAPD conducted a traffic enforcement operation in which officers monitored the vehicles and pedestrians who crossed the bridge for 8 hours. The new 6th Street Bridge has now been open to the public for 3 weeks. In that time, there have been dozens of citations and arrests for drivers doing burnouts, racing and crashing, and for motorcycle riders doing wheelies on the bridge. People have also been climbing the concrete archways and spraying them with graffiti.
Cat lovers will have a chance to dine like their pets thanks to Fancy Feast. The cat food brand will open a pop-up restaurant in New York City for 2 days next week. The event will feature a menu of Fancy Feast-inspired dishes for humans, developed by Fancy Feast's in-house chef and also a Michelin star-winning Italian chef. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
Country music star John Rich just released a new single called Progress, where he calls out woke ideology. Don't miss John Rich and don't miss The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday, every Thursday, and all throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Texas, this is Eric Burton. And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess With Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean. So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads. It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter free. Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org. Only in the forest can you see this. And this. And this. But nothing beats the moment you see that.
Cool!
That's your child's eyes opening up to a world of possibilities.
I didn't know it could do that!
Because one trip to the forest can spark a world of difference.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go, like hiking, canoeing, fishing, or camping. Or create your own adventure with family and friends, and you might just see this. Your moment's out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org. That's discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. It's not a quiz, not any kind of better name them all or you can't say anything. Now, whatever works for you, that's the best place for you to be, as we also, of course, have that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. The number to call there if you want to get your 2 cents on the line there, along with all the comments, all of those ways to do it here. I guess probably in the second hour of the show. Going to focus a little bit more on the phone calls, just because that's, of course, when we have them available. But any of the ways you choose to do so, you are more than welcome to do so, as, again, we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland, and the participation and people chiming in, sharing their opinions and their thoughts on the issues of the day. Kind of an important part of that to me, anyway. What makes it most interesting to me and why we keep doing it as much as we do here. So, again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM is the number to call. If you get a call in the midst of a segment, you might get popped up live, so just make sure you stay on your toes there. But a lot of comments coming in on some of those situations, RJ, on the idea of, just that whole China-Taiwan situation. Showing weakness would be a big mistake. Trump understood this with Xi Jinping and Kim Weird Hair Fat Boy. Yeah, that's a way to describe him here. Kim quit lighting candles, see where they land, and Xi made the trade deals he had to make. I mean, for a time, sure, but of course, they both now, doing whatever they want to. I mean, I think the thing that really confounded most international relations was really the wild card nature of the previous administration. I don't even think that's controverted at all, because seriously, there's what's the professional military phrase that I hear sometimes? It's often put under some of the the rules of the battlefield, or lack thereof. It's that professionals are predictable. It's the amateurs that are really dangerous. Sometimes kind of feel like some of that applies here, but also Maria commented a little bit earlier on some of the situations here, saying so many people in our community are continuing to struggle financially and emotionally as the shooting anniversary approaches. If you can please remember to donate non-perishables to the food bank or other charities. If you know someone directly affected, reach out to them. And I will just, as a reminder here right now, particularly since such a time frame can definitely affect a community like ours, that 988 number is, of course, nationally available and has local counselors attached to it now as well. The line will not go unanswered, so if you've got any of those issues, concerns, need to know about resources or what is available for you or anyone that you may be with, Again, 988. It is the National Mental Health Crisis and Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 988. Those three numbers. Please remember them and write them down here. Also, more talk about free ice going on here. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines. Our phone number is, of course, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Couple calls on the line here right now, so we'll start getting into those. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hi there. This is from, or actually, my middle name is Arturo. I've called in before. I'm your local friendly truck driver with advice on how to drive better. But the reason I'm calling is because last week I heard a lady talking about banning books. And, you know, I'm a book collector. I'm a book lover. Yes, hello?
Yes, we got you there. Yes, so talking about books.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard at the beginning.
Yeah, we got you on the line here with the discussion we had towards the end of last week with concerns about certain books in some of the local school district libraries.
Right. And I'm of the opinion that these are sacred space. Their books have to be respected. I don't care what they're about. But see, like good film, good books can inspire. They can ideas. They can show you other realities, and then you compare. You know, a smart person will compare other people's experiences. So like in my book collection, I call them my friends because they're always there. I can read them whenever I want, but it makes me think, it makes my imagination stretch. So, you know, I would tell that lady, listen, if you object to one or two books, whatever they are, well, maybe not young children, but when they're older, like middle school, and they start to think for themselves, it's good for them to engage in a different reality. And as long as you're there as the parents to help out, I think it's fine. But banning books should never be a recourse in any society. And that's what I want to chime in about. And, you know, personally, I have more than 10,000 books. Most of them I've read, but some of them I just don't have the time yet. But, you know, it's a good thing. Books are sacred, at least good books. Anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point there. I mean, okay, on the balance, I'm going to tend to agree with you here because anytime we start talking about what books should or shouldn't be available, the hair on the back of my neck starts to raise because let's just say that the precedents and the way that such points are often made and the people doing them often are people I find myself disagreeing with. But in this case, I think a balance does need to be struck. I mean, that conversation we went on for quite a bit at the end of last week here, maybe a little bit more than we should have, but it's an important point enough here. And if I have any foibles on this program, it's going on maybe too long on subjects. And some of y'all were still very enthused and fired up about that particular point as well, even sending me some of the examples of the books that were being discussed here. So as with most things in life, I do find there probably needing to be a balance struck because sure, I mean, age appropriateness, as much as I was definitely one of those kids reaching for the well above my age level books because that's what I was at and what I was reading and what kept me engaged and interested in school. Because if I'd had to be kept at just the grade level, reading level anyway, subject material is one thing. Math, yeah, I definitely shouldn't have skipped ahead in that one. But in the reading, the opening of the mind, in general, yes. But in particular, one of the books being talked about, it's not even just a, writing on a page, which can be graphic enough here, but the actual literal depictions of, well, I think the best way I can say it in this case, of sexual acts and the nature of them. Yeah, there's a level of like being in an elementary school, age appropriateness. Like, if a parent wants to discuss these things with their children, I don't particularly have an issue with that. And oftentimes being educated and having kids know about that, no, it's just not something we talk about. It's something that can be addressed in an age-appropriate way, which still may be incredibly uncomfortable. I have no illusions about that. But again, it's handling it the right way, and the right way is often a very difficult way. So I know some of them bringing it up here about, the certain types and availability. Let me just say that on the balance, I am mostly in favor of there being, no restrictions. But in certain cases, I mean, particularly in this one, but I've been, again, very activated y'all out there and sending me things on this. And no, don't worry, we're not going to have to scrub the computer of the emails that y'all sent me with the examples of what you're talking about, because if you all saw the stuff I had to Google for some of the things that we talk about regularly, you'd be, let's just say I spend a lot of time on the internet. In any case, point is that, yeah, when you start getting into salacious natures and even just violent things, there is a right time and a right place to talk about them. And I kind of find myself in favor of the idea of there not being safe spaces, because the idea that something isn't allowed to be brought up here, like, that's just kind of not how life works. But also, there is a way to grow into subjects. We don't throw calculus at a third grader, much like we wouldn't throw, graphic sexual content at one either, because they have not grown into such a propensity to be able to handle these topics here. So that's, yeah. Robbie Flores saying Walk the Line by Johnny Cash, great book. I mean, yeah, there are very good books out there, and anytime someone starts talking about, no, this book shouldn't be available, I start getting a little bit, yeah, just because the history of that is fraught at best. But that does not mean that therefore it can't even begin to be considered. It just must be considered very, very carefully. I think a lot of people have been doing that in these cases, and why we will continue, of course, having the discussion on them here. That's a lot to say that, yeah, it's a complicated subject, and we'll keep talking about that due for that first break of this hour here right now. So if you want to chime in on the show, that phone number to call is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Got to take that first break now. If you're on the line, stay there. Otherwise, we'll be back with more calls on the line after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more of Talk El Paso. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso traffic, I-10 westbound at Airway, a truck is blocking the right shoulder. Dyer southbound at the Loop, an accident reported there. Edgemere at Lee, an earlier accident, still has police on the scene slowing traffic at that intersection. Montana Avenue west of Copia, there's a crash there, and Memorial Highway slowing southbound after Montwood due to a stalled vehicle. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin. Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code GOLD. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for a $5 bonus.
Staples has everything for school at great prices. So this year you won't go back to school. You'll be ready to move forward and build that papier-mâché volcano.
I am not cleaning this up.
Ooh, yeah, I meant the kids. Staples will help them move forward. Right now, Crayola 24-count crayons and 4-ounce Elmer's glue are just 50 cents each, and 1-inch binders are only $1.99. Everything on your list at amazing prices. Staples, we're not going back. We're going forward to school. Ends 8/27, in-store only, limit 30.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See, we didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Definitely the main one, as it's where most of the comments come in. Most of the activity is where the Skeptic Squad definitely lives in the Thunderdome comments forums just about every day we're here on the show. But of course, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. We put it out there in all those ways to make it most accessible, available, and able to be commented on by y'all, whatever what's important to you. Also, the reason we keep that phone line going, because of course, that's an important thing to us. 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. A lot of commentary on a hot button issue as it may be on its own, books in school. So when I was talking about safe spaces and uncomfortability, again, some of these conversations may be seen as a left-wing or right-wing issue, but honestly, there are elements of this that come from either side of the aisle and beyond. I know there have been, at certain points, ideas of, say, removing, To Kill a Mockingbird from the shelves, because it might make people uncomfortable, or there might be material that is seen as unsavory by some, but at an age-appropriate level, particularly when it comes to some of those young adult books, the YA sector that has been increasing over the last generation or so. Sometimes they go into pretty serious stuff, and the way I kind of think about it is, yes, age appropriateness should be considered, but also kids tend to have a little bit more emotional intelligence than you may give them at. And honestly, the way I consider most of these things need to be handled is not necessarily making them off limits, but making it that it comes with, say, discussion, with understanding, particularly within your family, with instilling of the values and the way that you consider these things, and they should be handled for you and the way you all think of things. So, yeah, it's not simple. That's the simple answer to it, which is an unsatisfying one, I'm sure. But seriously, the way these things are handled, delicately at best, and general permissiveness with the impact of, for the age level appropriate, making sure it's understood and can be kind of couched in such a way to make it for the level of understanding. Again, just like I wouldn't throw calculus at a third grader, wouldn't throw at them, some of the books I read now, shall we say, or at the very least the longer texts I do, because they are of a serious nature and need to be built up to be able to be understood of it. The way I think about most education is definitely on the idea of you're trying to make full and complete humans come out of this fully able to, on their own, function within society. So if you're leaving them stymied by saying that, like, okay, sure, at this level, maybe you're not ready for it, but by making it always off limits, then what happens when they encounter that kind of thing in their real life? Because there's random things that I've never particularly anticipate to have gotten into on almost a daily basis, and got to figure out how to navigate through it, particularly if there isn't, a nice syllabus or rubric with it. So teaching them how to understand and how to deal with things as much as it is the core of all education, even when it comes to issues that most of us would rather not think or talk about, they definitely still happen here. Anyway, let's get back to the phone lines right now, as a lot more comments are coming in. Again, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Full at the moment, but you can squeeze in if you want to. We do have Barbara on the west side with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to speak on a couple topics here. I'm always getting pulled off course.
Of course.
Well, today is the first day for the children in County to go back to school, and those pornographic books are still on the shelves. But parents are still going to fight over removing them from the classroom. And I agree that our children explore things, that we need to give them stuff to increase their knowledge and have them, want to know more. But never is it age appropriate to show them a pornographic book and have a stranger read to them in the classroom, or show those graphic, horrific pictures in those books that you mentioned you've seen. And, it's just, we teach our children, I would tell my grandson, whenever you go into a teacher's classroom, it's her domain, you respect her rules. That's not safe anymore. So parents need to be alert. Parents are alert. Parents need to have a say in what the books are at the school. So pornographic books, anybody looking at that material online will be prosecuted. They find that they're sharing that material, they are in jail. So that's how critical it is what the books that they are having our children read or see, or that they're reading to or trying to explain, is just unconscionable at their age level. Now, regarding China, should Pelosi go to China or not? Well, this is what I think of China.
Mm-hmm.
They steal our intellectual property with impunity. They're in our colleges stealing the best technology and the best scientists. They purchase lands within strategic distance of our military bases, but then that's partially the United States' fault because they're allowing that to happen. They're funding Ukraine by buying Russian oil.
Mm.
They circumvent our tariffs by going to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Malaysia to manufacture the solar panels, which we have tariffs on them. They send in, again, fentanyl with impunity, killing over 100,000 Americans last year. 70% of them were killed by fentanyl. Then COVID-19, they wouldn't let us go in there and research and see what caused it so that we could be prepared for next pandemic. God willing, there's never one.
Mm-hmm.
And then on March the 21st, the U.S. Commander of Forces warned our government that China is the leading threat in the region, and he was talking about Central and South America. So if we back down from this country, we are nobody. Just look at the list of the things that they're already doing. They want to dominate. I mean, we've worked for a free country. We've worked for our freedoms and our liberties. So, you know what? I give kudos to Nancy Pelosi for sticking to her guns. This is one thing that I think she has done right. You just don't order the United States of America around. Yes, I love my country. Yes, we should keep our country here. But we are going to be dominated by a communist regime if we don't stand up to them. And kudos to Pelosi, female, I'm not going to put up with it. And the last thing is I called in a few weeks ago and I asked your listeners to call into the to log on to the Federal Registry, federalregistry.gov, and put in their comments regarding Title IX. And this is why it is so important that we go in there and say that save the women's sports, men are not women. The FDA has put a warning now on puberty blockers and saying that, and I'm going to read a list of the things that these puberty blockers are the effects on 5 to 12-year-olds. They said that they are causing tumor-like masses in the brain. It's including visual disturbances. These children are seeing bright lights where there aren't any. They're getting headaches or vomiting. They have swelling of the optic nerve. Imagine increased blood pressure in a 5 to 12-year-old. And there's eye paralysis. Now, the Family Research Council has stated that these drugs are not made for our bodies. And yet here we have, what is Levine, the Assistant Secretary at HHS, saying that these are life-saving procedures for small children. That's why it's so important. Put a stop in women's sports. Maybe some of them will change your minds. I'm not saying that that's why they're doing this. But I'm saying that's the problem with us encouraging this type of behavior. And we really need to be informed and aware that. And I know in Texas there was a lawsuit. I think a nurse and her husband, she wanted to give these puberty blockers to their child, and he didn't want to, and they went to court and all this and that. And now the evidence is coming out of what is happening with these medications. And the FDA, and as a matter of fact, some of the medical journals were suppressing this information from us. So this is a small step on the part of the FDA to let us know exactly what base gender medicine is doing to our young children. There's so much out there now that we need to be aware of, not just pornography in our schools, but transgender puberty blockers. The list just goes on. This world is not what I ever thought I'd be living in, to be perfectly honest. I never in my wildest dreams thought that someone could wake up in the morning and say, I'm a girl. or that I would hear a teacher say that her second grade class, all of them changed their pronouns, like I mentioned last week.
Mm-hmm.
We just as parents need to be alert. We want to have healthy children, body, mind, and spirit. And if we're not in tune with what's going on around us, this is what's going to happen to our kids, be influenced by a teacher. It's my understanding that some of the students at Canutiro were pulled out of a class to have a book read to them, one of these horrific books, without parental consent. That's why we need to stay involved in our child's lives, involved in the curriculum, involved with the teachers, involved with the school boards, and be active, because we want a healthy country. We don't want our kids out there with their poor little minds having been corrupted. So I hope that everybody in El Paso gets on that federalregistry.com, .gov, and puts in their opinion. And I hope everybody in El Paso goes to their school board meetings, listens to what they're saying, listens to who votes for this pornographic stuff, vote them out of office, and get involved. We want a healthy, sound generation. COVID already did enough to our kids without us standing back and not taking part in the rest of their lives. Now we know what's happening. Now we can get involved. Now we can make a difference in their lives and in the type of generations that we're going to have in the United States.
And as a note on that Federal Register, I mean, even if you just search up Title IX Federal Register, it comes up. But if you want to find it, it's federalregister.gov. And the way Title IX is written out there, it would be Title IX, as in the Roman numeral 9. So make sure to look for it that way if that's important to you. But I will say that's, oftentimes like going out and going like directly to a teacher about curriculum issues, like individual books or reading times, that's one thing, but about curriculum issues. And I just know from friends I have that are or have been in the teaching business, as that continues to be an issue. The time to largely do it is, particularly at the ballot box, but also when it comes to the way school board meetings happen, because if you really have concerns about it, that's the way to best go about it. And I know there's been issues about that and the way things may be being tracked or not, but seriously, I mean, in general, being more involved, more aware, more conscious. It may feel like there's a million things that you have to be paying attention to these days, and we do try to break down at least a few of them as much as we can every 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Let me just say this: yes, being aware and informed and active in your kids' classroom and your teacher, very good things to do. When it comes to changing things, school board and your elected officials there are definitely the parts and areas that I would start with. So thank you very much for the call. Do appreciate it. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will get into more of the comments, more of the calls, more of the things we do during this program, Talk El Paso, where we get into all of the issues that affect us here in the Borderland, often a diverse set of them. So more on that after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Several school threats were reported at different schools in the El Paso region on the first day of school today. Threats were reported at Montwood High School, Eastlake High School, and Narberth Elementary and Slider Middle School. Officials with the El Paso Police Department said they did not believe that the threats were credible, and instruction continued without interruption. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser has purchased 5,000 tickets for UTEP's first home football game. Those tickets are for city employees. Employees with the police department, fire department, and the sheriff's office are also eligible for the tickets. UTEP will face the University of North Texas on August 27th. Leeser says he supports the UTEP's 915 campaign meant to improve attendance at UTEP's home football games. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On your El Paso freeways this afternoon, Border Highway eastbound just before Midway, an overturned vehicle is blocking the center lane there. Slow down, use some caution. I-10 westbound before Airway, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Injury accident, Montana Avenue, west of Copia Street with police on the scene. And South Desert Boulevard southbound is closed between the Loop and Artcraft this afternoon for road work. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. It's been unseasonably hot as temperatures continue to rise about 5 degrees above average, which basically means more triple digits, and the heat is not done with us yet. In fact, we'll continue to see temperatures hover near 100 for the next few days, but we are expecting a little more moisture back in the area, and that will translate to better rain chances this week. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your very latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, Crayola 24-count crayons and 4-ounce Elmer's glue are just 50 cents each. Plus, 1-inch binders are only $1.99. In-store only. Offer ends 8/26, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school. Send them forward at Staples.
Clown Parade is an anthology comedy podcast series presented by Will Ferrell, Bowen Yang, and Matt Rogers. Each month, hear a fresh comedic talent create a brand new podcast format hosted by an original character of their own creation in the spirit of the Ron Burgundy podcast.
What I want you guys to produce are multiple podcasts.
Oh.
It's one podcast called Clown Parade, an anthological character piece carefully curated by culturistas.
Listen to Clown Parade on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org. Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the Borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
With the Strawberry Frosty, time to enjoy yourself is built in. They're so rich and creamy, they're built for you to slow down, relax, and just take it all in. So when it's time for Frosty time, and Strawberry Frosty time is for a limited time, choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Strawberry Frosty.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Lots of, well, many different subjects coming up on there. A lot of commenters tuning in, chiming in there, including RJ, Kathy Codry, Maria Coleman, Robbie Flores, John Brazelton, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez. That's just what I've come across here. Scrolling up for a minute here. So if you wanted to chime in, of course, welcome to do that. Also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate, even if our live stream signal seems to be going a little bit short here today. Matt Olson, Calvin Williams, Monica Cervantes, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez, as said, including congratulations for taking the jab and being informed. RJ saying you knew better, but I listened to InfoWars and Alex Jones. I mean, sure, being informed and having reputable sources is certainly an important thing, but also the ability to make your own decisions also very important to it. Because, well, it's what made sense for me and my family, but doesn't necessarily make sense for everyone. So being able to make your own decisions is kind of a cornerstone of the way things should be working anyway. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze on, that is still the number to do so, taking them through the end of the program as we do. So right now we do have Raul in Northeast on the line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, sad news for El Paso. 4 anonymous threats were made against 4 Sotelo Independent School District campuses today on the first day of school. What a welcoming to the kids, huh? In this great America that is really, really sick, where no one is safe anywhere, anytime, where the gun nuts rise and investments in politicians by the gun manufacturers trump the well-being and safety of the American people. This is just horrible. I still remember some of the titles and authors of the books that I had to read back in high school, Jesuit high school. We had to read Black Like Me by John Howard, who was a journalist who in the 1960s colored his skin black and mixed among the blacks to get a feel of being black in the deep South United States, back at a time when African Americans lived under racial segregation. I remember some of my classmates thinking it was really wrong for him to have done that. They were rich kids. They didn't like that. They didn't want to hear about how crappy it is for a lot of Americans of color. We read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, one of the first environmentalists, and the harmful effects of DDT was having on the environment, and then the government's involvement in regulating that industry and industry's, profit motive. We read Man Child in the Promised Land by Claude Brown, about growing up in the streets of Harlem. It was salty. I remember one of the parents, caught his son reading it, and his son was laughing. And then he said, "What are you laughing about, son?" And he picked up the book, and what he read, he was outraged. Now, this guy, Claude Brown's grandmother, ran a brothel there in Harlem, and it was funny and everything. And the colonel, was a colonel. This guy was a colonel. Complained to the school. He wanted the book taken out, or the teacher reprimanded for having him read the book. And they told him if he didn't like it, he'd get his kid out of the school. We read 10 Keys to Latin America by Howard Tenenbaum, about U.S. Latin American foreign policy and the sorry record that the United States has of dealing with all kinds of foreign dictators and creating banana republics. Stand up to this day with all these people flooding into the United States as those countries have failed. And the United States have played a big role in it with their, Monroe Doctrine and all of that. We read The True Conquest of Mexico by Hernan Cortez's captain, Bernal Diaz del Castillo, and that was pretty salty. I mean, these guys were soldiers and adventurers. I mean, full of salty language. We read A Man for All Seasons by Sir Thomas More, England's Lord Chancellor, who was beheaded by King Henry VIII for not siding with him on his request to the Pope for a second divorce. We read In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. We read about and debated the anti-missile treaty. So as far as Taiwan is concerned, I'd be against going to war with China over Taiwan. It's over there in their part of the world. The West played a big role in colonizing or trying to, muscle their way into markets in China and throughout the Asia and the Middle East. Long, long history, again, dealing with all kinds of unsavory people, dictators, people who don't adhere to the freedoms and liberties that we so much proclaim, but we don't care as long as we can make some money and sell them computers and weapons and whatever. So no, I don't want to go to war with China. And the United States and the Republican Party and Richard Nixon opened the door to China to eviscerate labor unions in the United States, to ship our jobs over there. And as for as many jobs as have been shipped over there, many more jobs were lost to mechanization, to robots. And that's what industry does. They want to maximize their profit. Their biggest cost is their labor. They're going to do everything they can to bring their labor costs down, and everything they can to get as favorable legislation and taxes and regulations that they can by buying all the politicians they can with their money. We live in a plutocracy. That's what's wrong with America, and we got to wake up, because this country is in crisis on many, many fronts, including the possible loss of our democracy by wannabe dictators like Trump.
I don't think many people would disagree with you on the idea that there's a lot of crises going on, even if they might disagree on some of the finer points of what it is there. Interesting about the education you were brought up with. I will say for my own part, essentially, I realized back in retrospect that something I went through in my middle school on up days was essentially comparative religions, learning about world religions, world cultures, the way they define and influence each other, and have moved throughout that. So I still very much value my early education and the education I did through the gifted and talented programs with the El Paso Independent School District, because it gives me a lot of basis to still look at and compare these things as we talk about often today. There, I got a little bit of whiplash when you switched over to Taiwan there from the talk of different novels and the subjects within them and their unsavory but maybe still important natures. I guess the main issue with Taiwan is, sure, I'm not interested in going to war with China on just about any particular thing. And frankly, the two major countries, economically speaking, in the world going to war with each other would be it could be catastrophic, even just from the nature of what happens, blockades, wars, lack of things moving back and forth. It would be unprecedented in, history, really, because the way it works these days is unprecedented in its own right. So having that breakdown, I mean, there might be this switch from globalization to hemispherization, if that's a phrase. I'll go ahead and coin it if not. That might be happening. I'm sure someone smarter than me has said that previously. Point is that doing that would be catastrophic probably in a lot of ways, but just sitting back and saying, and therefore let China do whatever it wants to. China is unabashedly interested in world conquest. Maybe not in as much an avowed way, but in controlling everything in the world. Yes, that's entirely and obviously and pretty much stated in that way. There's some total goal. So by just sitting back and saying, yeah, you can take this place that says they're not a part of you, have declared that, have literally guns aimed back at you, but you claim that you do control them, therefore you can just go ahead and take them. I mean, that's the whole Chinese Communist Party standpoint when it comes to Taiwan, that it is part of their national territory. One of the many reasons I'm probably never going to be able to visit mainland China is by the way that I've referred to mainland China as West Taiwan, because that's the way I feel about it. To say that we should just roll over and allow that to happen would be... I cannot think, as much as we talk historically and pointing things and saying what historians will think about it is often more of a rhetorical vice than reality, but I cannot think of maybe even a bigger sea change, or error that would be pointed out in history moving forward of the letting China do whatever the hell it wants with no check, because that will eventually directly come straight through our doors here. And interestingly, some points being made about DDT. I actually went to an elementary school at one point called Rachel Carson Elementary, and so learned about that from a very early age. I'm not saying that DDT was a good thing and I want it around, but I mean, some people are pointing out some of the issues that came with the idea of removing of it here. So thank you for the point in the call, I do suppose, even if I find myself disagreeing with it on the balance there. Some of the finer points, I guess not, but let's get to at least a couple more calls before the end of the show here, if we can. We do have Tony on the east side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good afternoon.
Afternoon there.
Points. First one is regarding the inappropriate books at our schools. Now, we're not saying taking those books off of the public square. That's where you want to find your 50 Shades of Gray. Help yourself. I totally agree with Barbara. We shouldn't be shoving those books down the public school children's throats. Now, as it is, we're paying a lot of good money for failed school systems, but you're stuck paying that, or you get your house taken away from the government if you don't. And there's a good reason. You don't tell. Now, you can tell Arturo, previous caller, does not have a daughter. I can guarantee you that. And Barbara definitely has children. She's concerned about their upbringing. You can absolutely tell. At what age can you tell your child, let's say a 3-year-old daughter, that you belong to a society where it's okay to kill your about to be born baby brother or sister? Obviously, you can't. The child will freak out and see the society has no respect for life, and your moral compass will go south just as quick as kids shooting up schools. Now, we don't realize we're causing that by blowing the moral compass out the window. Then we're freaking out when children are doing this. Well, it's only a natural consequence. Kill the innocent, don't respect life. You've got teenage pregnancies through the roof, and people act like they have no clue why this is happening. And about holding out guns. Now, what did the Boston bombers use to hurt so many people? It was no gun. It was grandma's crockpot. Now we're going to put serial numbers on those now. Or you're 18 years old, you're old enough to get a driver's license, you borrow a big old truck. So damage can be done by a mentally unstable kid in a lot of different ways. Now, going after guns for people that may need to have them to defend themselves against a tyrannic government is the solution. People say, oh, you're FBI, you can trust them. We could have trusted them 20 years ago. Now the corrupt FBI now has got no risk. You can't respect them. And there's a couple of political related points. The media pretended to freak out when President Trump called China virus by its origin, COVID-19, but then he should have just given in to them and called it by its proper name, by who funded it. I would call that the Dr. Fauci virus. which is, if you want to call it something other than where it's from, call who funded it. And a few of my Dem friends have claimed that President Trump was successful because things were poised by the Obama-Biden administration. Again, I will agree with them that without a Democrat presidency destroying the economy and peace around the world, including disastrous gun trafficking and all the things that Obama did, you wouldn't have much of a recovery to credit the next president, being Trump. Third note on political, speaking of a democratic presidency or process of policy, does anybody else see the direct relationship with the Joker on the Batman movies, where the Joker releases criminals with the clear motive of having them do what they do best, cause havoc on the American people? You've got crime up 50% whenever a Democrat is president or in control, and tell me that there's nothing to do with criminals running loose instead of being incarcerated. You have drug dealers having their way from the human, sex, and drug trafficking across the border to trafficking within our country. You've got needles and drugs polluting most democratically run cities. Funny, we can all see the intent of the Batman movie, where the Joker's just wreaking havoc on the people and are blinded by the media on our actual streets. Any comments and questions? Feel free to call in and reflect on these points. And I've got a few more notes, but we'll leave them for the next call, and we can hear all day.
Yeah, we definitely go into a lot of issues here, and we do it every Monday through Friday. So thank you for the points in the call made here so far. Do appreciate it.
You bet. You have a great day.
You too there as well. I mean, there are a lot of difficult issues that we deal with out there, and ones that we're probably going to continue to have to, because, I mean, they don't fix themselves. Let's put it that way. So, I mean, as much as there are, a lot of debate between, which administration should be credited or blamed with what longer term efforts, I mean, trajectories are all that can really be set by most administrations outside of, immediate goals, immediate things, because, I mean, sure, fentanyl might be a finer point to be made, and I think there should be more enforcement happening of that. But even then, it's an almost generational issue. I mean, how long we've been dealing with the opioid crisis has been for better part of a generation now. I mean, it's been that long and pervasive. So to expect any one administration to be able to quash it out, I'm not even sure if it's reasonable at that point. That's how big of an issue it has gotten. But if something doesn't do anything towards it, that's a point at which I think could definitely be made and should be. Tell you what, we got to take that last break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get back to what we can with On the Line, tell you what we got coming up for you, and close out the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the border highway eastbound before Midway, watch for a rollover accident blocking multiple lanes and causing a huge backup. Right now, there's a 79-minute delay from the 54 to the Midway on the border highway eastbound. I-10 westbound at Vinton, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder there. And South Desert Boulevard is closed from the loop to Artcraft today for road work. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Strawberry Frosty. With the Strawberry Frosty, time to enjoy yourself is built in. They're so rich and creamy, they're built for you to slow down, relax, and just take it all in. So when it's time for Frosty time, and Strawberry Frosty time is for a limited time, choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Heads up, Texas.
So you don't rear end me when I'm at a stoplight.
So I can ride my bike safely.
So I don't have to write you a ticket. Heads up, Texas, because driving and using your phone is a bad combination. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may have been doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or having joined us over on the various social media pages we're up on. A lot of people dropping those likes and reacts, comments as well. Just go to the reacts right now. Jay Visconti, Ion Graham, Matt Olson, Calvin Williams, Monica Cervantes, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez. You know we'll keep doing that every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do here on the show. A couple of the things we're working on for you as well, including some more focus on those local topics, local developments, and such, because, well, we got a lot of stuff going on. As well as a little bit more focus on those crime, what the rates are, where, well, El Paso rates among other big cities in the country. So just some of the things working on for you. Otherwise, that's about going to do it for us here for today. I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, this participation and people willing to put themselves out there. I know it may be, particularly in this day and age, I mean, we have it online because we do so here, but I mean, seriously, the way that we can have conversations about the important issues and make sure that we are actually dealing with them, as opposed to the whole, well, I don't like you, therefore I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say. I mean, sure, there's a place and time and place for that, but out in the public sphere, as we've kind of been referring to here, making sure that these issues are truly explored and talked about is very important to me, and something I think we need more of, and so we'll continue focusing on every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. So again, I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll keep doing it every Monday through Friday. So in the meantime, until our next show coming up tomorrow, be sure to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the Border Highway eastbound before Midway, watch for a rollover accident blocking multiple lanes and causing a huge backup. Right now, there's a 79-minute delay from the 54 to the Midway on the Border Highway eastbound. I-10 westbound at Vinton, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder there. And South Desert Boulevard is closed from the Loop to Artcraft today for road work. Harry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer. It can sound a lot like,
building looks mediocre.
designs need a do-over. Or even,
install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer: regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
The following program will be recorded.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.